I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about my research interests. Initially, uh, earlier on in my career, and for my PhD, my main interest was in relation to racism and minority groups in Britain. And this is only a small part of my research now, but the COVID-19 pandemic has seen me collaborating with a colleague in the medical school here at Warwick to consider how the government response to COVID-19, while on one hand showing such a great concern about the position of racialized minorities, while showing this concern, they're not showing much concern at all in racism. We're proud at Warwick that our undergraduate curriculum reflects these concerns, and the core of our teaching focuses on race, gender, class and sexuality in the first year. I do contribute to teaching on the intersections of race, labour and class. So in the first year teaching leads me quite neatly on to the second strand of my research interest. And that's most prominent in my current writing and also the two books that you see behind me. And so my most recent book, Beyond Religion in India and Pakistan, Gender and Caste, Borders and Boundaries, looks at the way in which religion is conceptualized in South Asia and brings to the forefront notions of gender and caste, which are not often looked at in relationship to religion. So I hope this very short kind of introduction to my research gives you a flavour of not only the work that I do, but the work that many other colleagues undertake at the University of Warwick in the Department of Sociology.
I'm delighted to have the opportunity to share with you briefly my research interests, which focuses on imprisonment, punishment, women in prison, transitions out of custody, and penal abolitionism. My first book focused on older offenders and was the first study to examine the experiences of women serving life sentences and who had grown old in prison. The book was called Older Women in the Criminal Justice System Running Out of Time and was nominated for the Philip Abrams Prize. The modules I convene are as follows: Gender, Crime and Justice at Level 2, Advanced Criminological Theory and Social Justice, Prison, Punishment and Penal Policy, a Comparative Perspective at MA level. I'm also involved in modules such as the Sociology of Gender, Crime and Society, Designing and Conducting Research in the Social World, Race and the Making of the Modern World, to name a few. I also convene the Criminology Film Society that will run again on a termly basis. And I've developed a Learning Together event with a local prison, and students from the Department of Sociology get the opportunity to visit a local prison.
I teach modules on racism, xenophobia, and creative and engaged research methods. And those themes are directly related to my research and writing. So here's a couple of books I wrote earlier. This one's called Go Home, The Politics of Migration Controversies. It was written with a group of researchers from across the UK, and it's about our research into how the UK government's messaging about migration control affects everybody's everyday lives. So that's given you a taste of my research, but all of those ideas are embedded in the teaching I do and the teaching practice that I have as well, because I really try to engage students in thinking actively and critically for yourselves. And I try to get you to think about what's happening in the world around you, to use theory, but to use it to make sense of the world, not just to know it as something in a book, and to ask critical questions based on what you're learning. So all in all, I really love talking to students about ideas and projects and puzzling over how to understand the world and maybe how to use sociology to make it better together. And I love the department because so many of my colleagues in sociology are also really enthusiastic about the same things. So I hope you'll come and study with us, and I hope you'll come and help us to work together to expand our sociological imaginations together.
I teach and do research in the area of relationships and family life. In addition to that, as my original academic background was something of a mix of quantitative sociology, statistics and population studies, I also teach quantitative research methods. However, some of my research has involved qualitative methods as well, and I've supervised various research students using qualitative or mixed methods, so I'm not purely a kind of statistics specialist or anything like that. Having said that, typically my publications are based on secondary data analyses using existing survey data. So, for example, I recently published an article looking at what kinds of things are associated with married and cohabiting couples having met online rather than offline. That related to a period just before the Tinder era, and given that kind of era and the pandemic, it will be interesting to see how people's behaviour has evolved since, once suitable data become available.
In terms of research, as you know, many sociologists research people in society. What I research is institutions. In particular, I research universities. You may be already familiar with institutions and educational institutions, which have already shaped your life so much. The very fact that at this moment you are looking to do a university degree shows just how influential universities are today and have always been. In fact, universities are among the oldest institutions on earth. At the moment, I teach two modules. A first-year module that is called Introduction to Social Analytics in Social Inequalities Research, and a master's level module that is called Mastering Complex Real-World Data. That's all about my teaching and my research. I hope that perhaps I will see you in one of my seminars.
My research has to do primarily with the future of the university, and especially the future of humanity, given that we're entering a period in which people's affiliations are beginning to widen much more broadly than they have in the past. So in other words, people may not be so strongly affiliated any longer with the sort of Homo sapiens style human being, but rather maybe more affiliated not only through cyberspace, but with virtual entities in cyberspace with which they might identify much more strongly. On the other hand, there are also people who are identifying more with nature and believe that in a sense science and technology have gone too far. And so these alternatives that I've just briefly sketched capture transhumanism and posthumanism. And both of these conceptions of humanity are basically vying for our attention and our allegiance in the future. In terms of the kinds of things that I actually teach, at the undergraduate level, I teach a sociology of knowledge course, which basically introduces students to this kind of thinking that I've just sketched here. And in addition, I also teach a course called the Sociology of End Times, which in our pandemic world might seem very appropriate, but in fact, the idea that there might be an end, both in the sense of a purpose and in terms of a termination point. I call what I do social epistemology, which is about the social foundations of knowledge. And I hope you find this interesting, and I hope to see some of you in my courses in the future.
Well, I do various different things in the department. At the moment, I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning, so I help sort of think about our teaching and learning and make sure that we are enhancing it and developing it. I'm also involved in running one of our research centres, the Centre for the Study of Women and Gender, and I am a feminist researcher, and specifically what I do is feminist ethnography. So I'm interested in ethnography. That's when a social scientist goes into a group of people, a place, a community, becomes part of that community and analyses what people do every day, how they interact, to see what's going on. And I'm really, really interested in looking at things that we take for granted and questioning them. And I do that in my modules, and one module where I do that students really, really enjoy is a module called Becoming Yourself. It's a second-year module, and that module came about because I could see lots of students in universities all over the world feeling really anxious about their studies and having all sorts of different mental health issues. And I was really interested in exploring with the students
why do we have these anxieties? Why do so many young people these days have a range of mental health issues? So what we do in the module is we look at things that we're told every day. So things like be positive, be unique, express yourself, treat yourself, and we look to see where do these ideas come from and what do they do to us. And we find that actually these ideas are very typical of what we call neoliberal societies, and they come out of encouraging us to consume all the time, to always try to improve ourselves, to always work hard, to always be productive, to never fail. And we look together in this module at how this shapes your sense of self, how it affects your mental health, and we discover that a lot of the stuff that goes on in our own private head actually connects to big topics around economy, politics, technology, science. And so it becomes really exciting, but also a little bit weird to realize how society is shaping your feelings and your emotions in these profound and interesting ways. But once you understand that as a sociologist, you can change it. You can change it in your head, and you can change it in people around you and in society. So that's what really excites me about sociology, is getting you to notice these things and then helping you think about what role you can play in changing it. So I hope you can join us here at Warwick to do all of this work, and I look forward to meeting you soon.
In terms of teaching, I teach a module in the third year on race, resistance and modernity, which is a third year module that tries to cover both historical and contemporary issues in this broad area of the sociology of race and ethnicity. In terms of research, my main areas of work are in the areas of the sociology of race, ethnicity. I have particular interest in questions about race and political mobilization in Britain and in other societies. So that's just by way of introducing myself to you and welcoming you. And I hope if you do decide to come to Warwick to study sociology, that I will see you and interact with you both in terms of teaching and also in terms of research.
It's a pleasure to be able to tell you a little bit today about my teaching and research. So my research field is broadly that of gender, race and politics, and more specifically, I've been researching the political engagement and activism of women from minority communities in Europe. And I've been really lucky to have worked with some fabulous colleagues in this field over some years, and I've won generous research grants to do the research that I really care about and which I hope contributes to positive change and that makes a difference to people's lives. As far as my teaching is concerned, I co-convene a second year module called Gender and Violence, and this module draws on research that I've done over the past couple of years on violence against women policies, particularly in France. And I also convene two master's modules which form part of the MA in Gender and International Development.
I've been a member of the Department of Sociology here at Warwick since 2013. In that time, I've taught at all levels of the undergraduate degree programme, and my main areas of expertise are social theory and economic sociology. My own research has been interested in the effects of the financial crisis that started in 2007, and I've been interested also in the idea of neoliberalism, or the fact that markets exercise increased power over all of our lives. I've written about competition, about debt, and more recently about the history and power of corporations.
I just want to extend a warm welcome to you and tell you a little bit about myself. I convene and teach on two key modules in the department, one of which is a core module for students in the first year of their degree. It's called Class and Capitalism in the Neoliberal World. And in this module, we're examining a range of contemporary theories that build on the forefathers of sociology, Marx, Weber, and Durkheim, in order to examine the changing nature of class in neoliberal societies. And I also teach a third-year elective module on state crime, human rights, and global wrongs. And this is a research-led module because my research interests are very broadly related to conflict, human rights, and grassroots social mobilization in relation to conflict societies. In this module, we look at sociological and criminological perspectives on different types of criminality, such as, for example, torture, genocide, and state terror. And I hope that I will see some of you as my students in the next few years.